You're watching Wartscenter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wartscenter, the show where we tell you we're going on a break and there will be content in the meantime, but we never deliver on that. I'm your host, Brand Balger, and joined today, as always, Dimitri Lund, Koba, and Tanaka. How's everyone doing?
Oh, the holidays were quite a rush.
It was like hibernation.
But like any good hibernation, we are indeed back. And, it's the same guys that you missed this whole time, the same ones that you downvote on site. Anytime you're on the Deadit bounty boards, you see the NKBBL and you're like, man, where have those guys been? I hate them.
Turns out we get paid by, we get paid salary, not by the hour, so we just figured we wouldn't work. Anyway, well, after our long break, we had the conclusion of week 6 and we'll be going into week 7. So let's take a look at those week 6 results. So the New England Matriarchs put up 3 touchdowns, 3 casualties against the Antekin Kings. The Wildwood EU and the Los Alamos Aliens come away with a tie. The Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers win a close match 2-1. The Vermin Skulkers, I almost forgot, put up a league record 8 touchdowns in an 8-0 demolishing of San Francisco's Legion. The Guttersburg Rebels get it done against the Orlando Orcas, who scored their first touchdown of the year, so congrats, Orcas. And the Slam Diego Chargers win the Bash Fest against the SCLSU Mudclaws 2-0. Any points from the desk about these matches, guys?
What a nightmare it was to face those rats.
I mean, yeah, the sidelines only track up to 8, but I'm sure if they had more time, they'd go higher. So, ouch. Also, for the Wildwood EU and the Aliens game, hell of a game. Buckner is an amazing coach, and it came down to the wire. So, and again, you see the casualty count. They're bashier than they look. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So figure that out.
The Chargers felt that one firsthand.
Yeah, definitely shout out to Wildwood, who have been a bit of a statistical anomaly. They're one of those teams that has been performing excellently, honestly, in about every metric. They just can't win games.
Yep, but they're still it's still relatively early in like the divisional matchups, so they're still in the hunt. They're on the outside looking in, but they're very close, which we'll talk about moving forward in the show.
Absolutely, plenty of season left to play.
Of course. All right, so now we'll have to talk about some of the statistics and our league leaders in every category. Player of the week, unsurprising, with 6 touchdowns, 2 catches, and the MVP, Longshank Stilltail. He's unstoppable.
Truly.
I think he got a little offended that we kept comparing him to Skrunk, and he's just laid his own path. He said, "No, I'm better."
The record coming into the season for a single game touchdown count was 6 for a whole team, and he put up 6 by himself.
Yeah. And
what a legend.
Insane. But unsurprisingly, in the SPP category, Stilltail stays at the top with 62 with no real contenders. Warfius, however, is making a case for himself. After a case of the yips in the first 3 games of the season, he's really rocketed up in a short amount of time. And then Timothy the Voidwalker getting it done just behind him. All right, 4 touchdowns. Again, Stilltail, 18 scores. I think we can give him the most scores trophy now. God, what is
There's still time.
There's still time. What is the max in a single season? Did he already destroy that?
The record is 23.
23. So there you go. There you go, Skulkers. There you go, Longshanks.
Season 3, Freya Sigurdrifa put up 23 for the Jotunheim Valkyries, and Longshanks is looking to match that in about half as many games.
Yeah. So, hey, 6 more touchdowns, and you'll just keep you'll write your name in the history books. Behind him, I would say just behind, but that's not even close. Behind him, Timothy and Sonia the Dancer down at 7, and then below him is Warfius.
He actually has 6.
Yeah, he has 6. That was a typo. Sorry. We're getting the staff here at Cabal Vision geared up after the long holiday.
Yes, still a holiday hangover here.
Yeah, we drink too much. And on the passing side, Juniper Mammoth takes the top spot with Dr. Zaius right behind, and Tretch Venomfang from the Vermin Skulkers in a pretty distant third. As for catches, Timothy the Void Walker takes the crown with 6 catches. Longshank Stilltail with 5 in the silver spot. Maybe he'll look to top that category here soon as well. And behind them, Cornelius and Gordy the second share 4 catches apiece, and Joaquin Branch with them from Wildwood. In our superb throw teammate watch, we've got Sire Reginald at the top spot and Birchmont Thunderbranch just behind him. However, Sire Reginald has been confirmed to be out next match. So if there's an opportunity to equalize and maybe get a little bit ahead, it's this week. So we're looking at you, Birchmont, to keep this thing tight. And of course, no deflections or interceptions this year. We had too much fun last year and got multiple, so I guess we're due this drought. And in casualties, the Vermin Skulkers are at the top for a reason. Not only do they have Longshanks, but they also got Squeak Spinetail racking in 7 casualties. We don't often see a Skaven team put in so much hurt, but this Skulker squad has it all. Behind them, Diablo Zod, Terrace the Invoker, and Ulrich Doom Ripper at 6, and in his own spot in bronze, Lightning Tom. As for fouls, since the beginning of the season, it's been Farmer Fran. He leads the league at top, Bark just behind him, and a whole host of 1 foul Sneaky gets. And in the kill category, Farmer Fran, again, with his 2 foul kills, remains at the top, and we've got a small committee looking to come close in terms of kills. For fantasy football, we look like we're getting closer to about 50-50. So if you picked up Longshanks over the break, you had a pretty good week, as he put up a hell of a lot of points for you. He sits at the top, and it's not even close. Timothy the Void Walker, Sony the Dancer, also rostered. And then Warpheus is, like I said, doing a lot with not as many weeks to do it in. LT, Doom Ripper, Morpheus, not to be confused with Warpheus, Tad Lateness, Stretch Sneak Claw, who also got picked up over the break, and Terrace the Invoker.
I do want to call out here, Longshanks in week 6 alone would be 3rd overall. He put up 44 points in his week 6 showing, which would be just behind Void Walker and Sonia.
He's a freak.
Absolutely.
League winner. Oh my goodness. What are we going to do? All right. Well, we've had a lot of fun, but the holidays weren't happy for everyone. So we have to go into our least liked segment, of course, that is the obituaries. So in this segment, we'd like to take the time to honor our fallen brethren and those who lost their lives in the pursuit of entertaining us. So this week, we lost and honor Sushi, a thrall from the New Report Brainwave Blitzers. And also...
Sushi went...
Go ahead, Koba.
The sushi went bad. It's expired.
Yeah. And Koba, I know this one's near and dear to your heart, but we also had to attend the funeral of Mala, the gorilla blocker from the San Francisco's Legion.
His family is in tatters. He was the last male of his bloodline. It is unlikely that the Malas will ever recover.
Indeed. All right, moving on. Let's talk standings. What do y'all think? This is tight.
Yeah, Blood Division's really tight right in the middle, all the way down to the bottom. But Bowl definitely has some very obvious contenders, which we'll get to again later.
Yeah. Bowl has the first clinch playoff in the league. Vermin Skulkers are locked in since they have beaten the bottom 2 teams, and the bottom 2 teams cannot score more than 9 points. They were in with the win last week. So there's some other potential playoff situations in the future that we're going to talk about. But Bull's shaping up really nicely, but no one's eliminated. It's still open. And then Blood, man, once you get off of the Matriarchs, I guess Matriarchs and Neuroport, that middle, it's a fat middle with Blood Division for sure. 3 people all one point apart, and even the last place team, the Kings, they're only technically a game out, I think and a half, because they've lost to Roth Legion, but like a game and some tiebreaker shenanigans out from being in the picture. It's a good time to be watching the playoff race for Blood Bowl.
Yeah. The Bowl division is led up by, I would say, probably the 2 strongest teams. We'll get to that a little bit later in the broadcast in the entire league, but I would argue that there's way, way big depth in how much strength is actually in the blood division. I think some teams in our league right now look a little bit weaker just because of the high-end talent of the overall league, because the blood division is just that tight.
Mm-hmm. All right. Just a little bookkeeping to tighten everything up. We're going to talk about all of the additions that were made between each team before really breaking down and getting to the part where I like most. We talk about the Week 7 matchups and get everyone's picks. So for the An Tekken King, Slam Desserts picks up Juggernaut. Ambata Khan picks up Safe Pass. And the fans are leaving An Tekken, it seems, as they drop to Dedicated Fans 1. But they have picked up a coaching staff and a few cheerleaders. So hopefully that'll see them through their second half of matches. The Guttersburg Rebels are going to be out a few folks. Handhausen is missing this game. Sire Reginald, which we talked about, will be out, so no more Superb Throw teammates in Week 7, so he'll have to bounce back from that Week 8. Snet Throw Fling is also going to be missing. Jojo Bizarre picks up Prehensile Tail, so Goblin's got a tail. You don't see that every day. They hired Plart Boot to help bolster their defenses. And Shrek Kick Punt picks up Tackle. Los Alamos Aliens make a few changes. They fired Bravo and hired Whiskey. Diablo Zod picks up Tackle. But they're going to have to do it without Lee Harvey Gobswald and Charlie this week. The Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers. Boss Mahomes picks up Strip Ball, and they gain a few Throw linemen as they fired Steak and Cordon Bleu and picked up Ribeye and Cordon Bleu. Dedicated Fans go up after that big win last week. The New England Matriarchs pick up, Terrace the Invoker gets Tackle, and like is custom, 2 new linewomen have joined the crew, but they will be announced during the pre-game festivities, as is New England's custom. The Orlando Orcas pick up a new blitzer by the name of Orchid, and Nalani picks up Tackle. Not a lot of skills with this squad, but they are getting them to help close out their season. The Dedicated Fans do fall to 2 after last game's loss. The Roth Leech and Rampage pick up Skim Timbits, the dwarf blocker, and Dolph Finnegan gets Tackle, and Tucker Frump picks up Sure Hands. Dedicated Fans also not too pleased with Roth Leechen's recent outcomes, so they drop 2-1. And San Francisco Legion is going to have to get it done this week without Cornelius II, as he picks up a niggling injury. And with the loss of M. Mala, they've hired new gorilla blocker Ultra Humanite.
He's won the watch.
All right, you heard it here first. Keep an eye on Humanite and see how he does in his debut match this week. And for the SCLSU Mudclaws, not much changes after their defeat to the Slam Diego Chargers, but they do pick up their second reroll. So with that coaching staff, get a little bit more consistency in their play in the coming weeks. And for the Slam Diego Chargers, Junior Seau picks up Tackle. Jaw Basham picks up Grab, try to catch some sidestepping gutter runners, wink wink. And they hire Orc lineman Killimack. Oh, and the Apothecary, because the Skulkers have been known to be a very bashy, very good at removal for some reason. So they get the staff to help keep them healthy. And for the Vermin Skulkers, Rack Scat Jr. is going to be out, but they have hired Ratscallion. And lastly, for the Wildwood Eldar United, a whole host of random skills were taken by this crew, as Jay Elderberry picks up Dodge, Juniper Mammoth gets Fumbarooski, Woodland Stump takes Leap, Maple Moss picks up Sure Feet, and Ivy gets Sure Hands. All right, let's talk about those picks. So the leaderboard has not changed much since I think week 2 or 3 when I jumped you, Koba. But
we're anything, we are consistent.
Yeah, right. But it is getting tight. With a couple perfect picks last week, Tanaka's coming really, really close to Dimitri. This week could be a defining moment where we see Dimitri finally dethroned. We'll see. But yeah, it's pretty tight for 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4. We're just here to have some fun. But anyway, let's talk about all of our matchups. First up, we have the New England Matriarchs versus the Roth Leech and Rampage. Tanaka, I will kick it off to you. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I expect this to be a good match. I'm going to keep it pretty brief, though, because just looking at the results for both teams in the last couple weeks, New England Matriarchs, they've been posting about 2 touchdowns per game since week 3. That's obviously after their only non-win of the season in week 2 when they tied the Slam Diego Chargers. The Rothlegion Rampage, they've been on a little bit of a slump. They haven't been winning as many games as they did earlier in the season, but they've been consistent, scoring at least 1 touchdown per game. They haven't been posted in a shutout yet. Although New England has provided some shutouts, I don't think that'll be the case. I do think it will be hard fought, though. I am predicting New England Matriarchs to win 3-1.
All right. Dimitri, I know you said this was one of the 2 you were sure of. So who you got?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very tight week, and that'll probably be a brief point of the discussion for the next half hour. But the Matriarchs, I still think, are one of the top contenders in the league. I think as far as the top 3 teams on the table are concerned, I think the Matriarchs are kind of the odd one out. Just because for a lot of their positives, they still have a couple of notable weaknesses. They are one of the lower casualty count teams, and that's not necessarily something you're expecting out of an Amazonian team, but they are definitely leaning more heavily into that evasive play style. And as I've mentioned with evasive style teams in the past, that usually comes to catch you at the end. But they're doing a great job of going through a division with a lot of aggressive teams, and the Rampage just haven't gotten that momentum. I think most teams in the Rampage's position would have that kind of preparation come week 7 of the season, but they just haven't had it. They've been absolutely lacking the momentum. They've had a ton of heartbreaking moments going back to the game against Neuro Report on stream before the break. With all that in mind, I think the Rampage are just outclassed, but they are a team that knows how to put together a fight still. I'm going to go 2-1 Matriarchs winning this game, just because the Matriarchs are going to continue to be one of the more consistent teams in this league. But the Rampage are going to try and keep it close. I just don't think it's going to be enough.
Fair enough. Koba?
The Matriarchs have shown that they are very tall, and that means long legs. And that leads me to believe that they are going to win this one 3-1. Whoa.
All right. Well, me personally, I'm not going to go against the grain here. I think I've got the Matriarchs doing it. So, the record's shown they've been elite this year. They do lead the league, tied for first in the amount of touchdowns scored against them. And there's also something important to play for, because if they win this week, they will clinch playoffs. So get this win and you're in. Yeah, on the flip side, I think Rothlegion has just struggled just a touch to get their bearings this season. The potential's there. The coaching staff is excellent. It's just one of those teams, at least in this edition of Blood Bowl, you gotta will it into some production, and it just hasn't shown just quite yet. Always ready to be surprised, and I think there will be a match in the future that does that for us. But for this match, I've got it 3-1 for the Matriarchs. Next up, we've got the Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers versus the Los Alamos Aliens. Tanaka, I know you're close to one of these teams.
Just a little biased. Although, I'm going to be honest, picking this one, I have 2 games this week that I literally had to consult dice. I sat down and said, I don't know exactly what the scores are going to be. I'm going to roll some D3s and do an average. So I'll get to the exact score in a moment, but just looking at the stats for the teams, both of these offenses tied the Wildwood EU, which they're towards the bottom of the blood standings. But again, statistically, for performance-wise, they've been really good. They just haven't been racking up those wins. So those 2 ties come from a similar opponent that they've had to deal with, and they both had similar results. The Brainwave Blitzers, their last 3 opponents scored 1 or less touchdowns, and those same 3 opponents over that 3-week stretch scored roughly an average of 1 touchdown or less for them as well. So Rothlegion scored about 1 touchdown per game. I have the SCLSU Mudclaws. They've been on a bit of a slide. They've averaged about 0.66 touchdowns, and then the Kings, as we know, they're somewhat allergic to scoring, it seems. They're at 0.33. Now, in the same vein, Los Alamos in that 3-week stretch, Warfius has been putting up numbers. He's scored 2 touchdowns per game in that same stretch. And I think those specific numbers are going to come into play here. I think it's going to be a 2-1 victory for Los Alamos. However, if this is a tie, don't be shocked. And I wouldn't be shocked if it flipped 2-1 the other way. This is a hard to predict one, but I had to pick someone, and I'm biased. So
fair enough. Yeah, this one's tough. Dimitri, who you got?
I do think this is probably one of the closest games on the schedule this week. The Rainbow Blitzers have been an absolute, I wouldn't say surprise, because that's, I think, a bit of an underrating for how good they've been this season. But they've been on a bit of a tear. They've finally hit a couple of rough spots that are, prone for vampires at a certain point in their season usually. On the flip side, the Aliens got off to that rough start, and I think they're finally coming back into that form of a team that is ready to finally claim some hardware for all the hard work they've put in these last few seasons. I think the Aliens are going to be a very apt team to handle the Blitzers. However, the Blitzers have been opening up their passing game a ton in the past 2 weeks in particular, and I think that's one of the Aliens' biggest weaknesses is trying to stop play through the air in one capacity or another. I think that loose cannon aggression that the vampires are leaning into is what's going to ultimately win them this game. I have Neuroport going 2-1.
All right. Split desk so far. Koba, what do you have?
Well, I might be splitting the desk again. Upon the evaluation, I do think this will be a close game. But I have seen the Aliens up close and personal, which is why I'm calling this 2-1 Aliens.
All right. And yeah, I think I've got to complete the split here. Just looking, at the records, obviously Neuroport has had a little bit of better success, and they also have, a few good leaders on the team. Like I've got mentioned here, Timothy leads the league in catches. They're very aggressive. They're not afraid to lean into the superior skills that vampires have. And I think they can kind of go head to head with those vampires. The vampires can go head to head with the big guys. I think here in some ways. I think claws on Ulrich is going to be a key. And again, just to talk some playoff implications, because we're at that point in the season, Neuroport can technically clinch this week. Obviously they're 4-1-1. Their likelihood to make playoffs is already high, but they can get it done this week with some help. So if they win and both Rothlegion and Wildwood Elder United lose, then they will have effectively clinched playoffs for season 5, which is exciting. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be close. Obviously Morpheus has ignited. He's turned on, and with Los Alamos, it's with Chaos Renegades just in general, it can be pretty swingy, so it can go either way. But at the end, I've got Neuroport rocketing off to a 3-1 victory. All right, the Wildwood Eldar United take on the Tekken Kings. Tanaka, which side you taking?
Well, you just heard about what I said with the Kings and their seeming allergy to scoring, and that's no fault of theirs. They're very slow, and they just try and smash some heads in. Wildwood EU, we've talked about them already a couple times on the broadcast. They're very good statistically. You see there, Juniper Mammoth, 10 passes, leading the league. One thing that's not listed here currently is they're just casualty prone. Like they can deal some damage despite being a bunch of knife ears.
Mm-hmm.
So they're putting in the work. They just haven't gotten enough wins to show for it. But going to the stats, they've scored a minimum of 1 touchdown per game all season. And since week 4, they've allowed roughly 2 or more touchdowns. And again, they're rather bashy for an elf team. But I think despite having a leakier defense the last couple weeks, they're going to have a benefit here facing the Kings, who's one of the lowest scoring offenses in league history with 2 touchdowns to date and only 1 in the past 3 weeks. So I think, sadly, this is probably going to be a shutout. I think it's going to be 2-0 Wildwood EU.
All right. Mitri, your take?
So Naka, we're in agreement. I also have Wildwood EU taking this one 2-0. I only have 2 for the Elven squad, mostly on the merit that going into that discussion about how they're a elf team that is not afraid to bash, they play the game kind of slowly, which I think is why they've fallen into 3 draws already this season. Obviously, they're going up against something that has a little bit more of that meat on their bones, or I guess more bone on their bones would be a more appropriate way to say this, I guess. That slow play style that Antekken has, I think is going to like make this a very weird tempo game just for the coaching style that Wildwood brings to the table, which is why I only have them getting 2. Their elves, they have the ability to create those stretch plays, and I wouldn't be surprised if their offense, finally gets ignited this game because they're going up against that bottom of the table Tomb King squad. And to not completely count out these Tomb Kings, that tendency for fighting that Wildwood is going to have might actually end up playing into their favor. I still put the odds in favor of this being a lopsided game to some fault, but I think this is a game where a lot of chaotic things could end up playing out.
All right. Koba.
Well, I wrote the same thing, but for different reasons. But those reasons will be my own. Eldar United, they're taking it 2-0. And I'm drinking with them afterwards. Whoa!
Well, I think maybe somewhat unsurprisingly, I'm going Wildwood as well. I think one thing to the King's credit is they will have some inducement cash to play with. So there's a potential to swing this here if they procure the right tools going in. But this is a situation where you can kind of flip the script of your season this week. Like I've got written, Wildwood are in the hunt. They're right in that 5th place spot, but they're only 1 point away from the 4th place spot. And same with the Kings. You get the win, and then you're in 5th, but you're only outside of 4th based on a tiebreaker. So you have all the potential in the world to keep moving up. But I've got 2-1. I think the Kings they've been finding a way to score every now and again. I think this is one of those matches where maybe they get enough casualties to put one in, but in the long run, Wildwood gets it done. All right, the San Fran Caesars Legion take on the Orlando Orcas. Tanaka, break this one down for me.
Somebody's got to win, right? You think? Watch this be a tie. That would be very funny. Orlando did get their first score of the season last week, while San Fran is still recovering from a historic beatdown to the Skulkers. So San Fran's failed to score 2 or more touchdowns all season, and honestly, if Orlando does get a point on the board, then it probably will end in a tie. However, I'm going to give the lean to the Legion just because they do have the experience. They have the scoring potential. They just haven't been winning their games. I think this is the one they get this year for getting that wins on the board. So 1-0.
Perfect. No, you're good. I was like, I don't want to spoil it for you. I was going to hit it, but wanted to give you your shot. Game. Yeah.
Might be a tie.
Yeah. This is an interesting one as well. All right, Dimitri, who do you got?
Well, the Orcas are struggling in the scoring column. That's the simple way of saying it. And unfortunately, at 0-6, they are on pace for only the 2nd wooden spoon season of the league's history so far. And I think there's a lot of hope that the Orcas can at least put together something to prevent that. I mentioned the idea that a lot of close games are on the schedule this week, and I think this is a game that very well could end in a draw just because these are 2 teams that are struggling. Caesars Legion, up until last week's absolute, molly-whopping at the hands of the Rats, were good for a touchdown a game, and I think that's going to be the big thing to point out. The question is, are the Orcas going to step up to the plate and put one on the board themselves? But here at this desk, we make sure someone wins every time. I'm going to favor the idea that both of them do score, but it's going to be 2-1 in favor of San Fran. Again, another close game that could go either way at the end of the day, in my opinion, but that experience that Tanaka mentioned is what I have for San Fran winning this one.
All right, great. All right, Koba, how many points is San Fran going to win by? Because I know you're not picking against them.
Never. We're gonna smack these whales. We're gonna smack them down so hard they'll wish SeaWorld was still open. This is gonna be a 3-1 victory for the Legion.
All right. There may have been a typo, but we'll confirm.
3-0. No,
okay.
No. Yeah, no, that's right.
User error then. Got it. All right. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's obviously this is one of the situations where, just like the previous match we talked about, it's the 5th place versus the 6th place. Still your whole season to play for here, as the winner puts themselves in a much better place, statistically, because they're both just about a game out. The Caesars Legion gets away from that 4th place spot because of a tiebreaker in the head-to-head, but the Orcas don't have yet to play their match with the 4th place squad, so they could... goes down the line whether or not they would be ahead of them in terms, probably not due to the rest of the tiebreakers, but it'd be a little closer. So either way, I think someone's got to get it done this week. Someone's got to get their first win, and I'm putting it as the Caesars Legion. But just like Tanaka, I'm going 1-0. Because I think this will be an interestingly bashy affair. All right, the SCLSU Mudclaws take on the Pittsburgh Rebels. Tanaka, what do you see happening in this match?
Oh boy, this should be a really good game. One thing I didn't have written down on my own notes here, that's you can see as evident on the screen here. The TV differential. That's about what 500 something K in inducements. I'm sure the Rebels would prefer to have their star players, but as a former Goblin coach and one that is very familiar with inducement packages, I think that's going to be a very big edge here.
Hey, you love to see it.
The Rebels, yeah, I think it'll help. Guttersburg is in their name, but Guttersburg has scored roughly 2 touchdowns per win since week 4. SCLSU has given up roughly 2 or more touchdowns since that same period. And again, I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the Mudclaws have been on a bit of a scoring slump, averaging less than 1 touchdown per game since week 4. This should be a really close one. I did notice that one of the Skaven linemen did pick up tackle, and with the speed factor of SCLSU, I think that would definitely come in handy as like a free safety situation. But I think overall, I give the edge to the 2-time champ here. I'm going to say 2-1 Guttersburg Rebels. This one, I think, does have playoff implications, right? Because at that point, I don't want to say they're locked, but it helps their case a lot going down the stretch just because of how tight the bottom of the standings are for bowl. So I think it'll be a big factor in how it turns out.
All right. Dimitri, who are you taking?
Well, I know we mentioned earlier about the TV differential, especially like going back with the game between my apologies, the Kings and the Eldar United, about how that package might be, an element at play here. It's even more so when you're looking at the massive just dearth in value between the Mudclaws and the Rebels. And I think that's going to be one of the main deciding factors, exactly how the Rebels choose to spend that money. That in mind, I expect an absolute bloodbath in this game. I'm going to see a lot of Rebels players face down staring at the sky. I think they're going to lean into the fact that they are just been on the receiving end. They are in last place in the league on casualties allowed, and that's only going to get worse going into this matchup, I think. Unless they get some kind of like early game momentum, depending on, again, what kind of money gets spent. But with all that in mind, I also think this game is going to turn into a shootout, because if there's anything that the Rebels are, it's resourceful and scrappy. I have them beating the Mudclaws 3-2 this week, because that same offensive struggle that the Mudclaws have had is going to rear its ugly head here. I think they're going to get that momentum, but just like their game earlier this season with the Eldar United, I think the Rebels are going to put up the fight that manages to squeak out the score that they need.
All right. I like the inclusion of the squeak in that last statement. Koba, who do you have?
I think these rats are getting smacked. I'm giving this to the Mudclaws 2-1.
All right. And I'm going to split the desk again, I think. This one was really tough for me. You've got SCLSU, who they're starting to get built up in a way that only Lizardmen can. You start to really fear all the strength 4 pieces with block and all the speed and everything that team really provides. On the flip side, you've seen Guttersburg struggle in some ways, but obviously recently they've picked it up and they've clawed themselves back to a 500 record. But I think at the end of the day, the casualties seem like they may come hard and fast, even with that 555,000 TV differential. I don't know if you can necessarily buy yourself a win with that, because those Mudclaws are still going to be pretty hardy. I've got the Mudclaws 2-1, but I wouldn't be shocked if this flipped. It's going to be a tight match. And lastly, your match, which you will see later this evening live, the Slam Diego Chargers take on the Vermin Skulkers, number 1 versus number 2, both at 9 divisional points at the top of the bowl division, technically both unbeaten. Tanaka, How's this one play out?
Brother. This is probably the hardest decision I've had to make for a pick'em this season. The stats speak for themselves. This is the number 1 team and the number 2 team. Both they haven't technically, obviously one hasn't lost a game. The other one hasn't lost a game either. Ties aren't fun, but it also isn't conceding enough points to lose. Neither of these teams have allowed more than 1 touchdown per game. They've both provided shutouts throughout the season. It's just, so the Skulkers, they have the touchdown differential, as you see here, but they also have, as we saw earlier in the broadcast, they have this season's current casualty leader and a Skaven blitzer. What the hell? But on top of that, they also have the de facto league MVP at this point in Longshank Stilltail, as long as he's still alive. But I'd say the Chargers are the prime opponent to knock the Skulkers down to size. They are the bashiest team in the league, as you see here with their casualty differential. And they've also been able to hold their opponents to minimal scores, as I mentioned earlier, roughly 1 touchdown per game or less. And it's going to honestly, in my opinion, come down to whether the Skulkers survive the first half of play. If the Orcs get a few key removals early on in that first half, I think the Skulkers can be beaten. But honestly, the sheer blistering scoring rates this season are hard to ignore. And defensively, yeah, the Skulkers have really been right behind the Chargers in that differential. Their worst posting this season was a 3-1 victory to both Nero Port, Brainwave Blitzers, and Los Alamos. So I'm thinking the second seed Chargers to at least best that and keep the score within 1. I'm predicting a 2-1 victory for the Skulkers.
All right. Dimitri?
If there has ever been a regular season matchup that has championship atmosphere, it's this one. I've used the term heavyweight fight a few times, probably even just this season, but like this might be 2 of the best teams in NKBBL history. It is just the best Orcs that you can put together versus the most prolific gutter runner led Skaven squad you could have. It's absolutely a dream of the best Blood Bowl you could possibly put on the pitch. And I think more than anything, the Chargers knew that the Skulkers were going to be good this season because they have been putting together a team that has had Week 7 circled on their calendars from before any games were even played. That said, the Skulkers knew they were coming in with a goal to be the most prolific scoring team of all time, and they've already done that, and we're only 6 weeks in. So this is quite literally the unstoppable force and the immovable object finally coming to a head. The Chargers are the team built to take down these Skulkers, and not just beat them, but like maim them, tear them apart. And I don't know exactly what degree of damage is going to happen. But if I have to use 6 weeks of history at this point, I think even if the Skulkers get left with 4-3 rats on the pitch, that they can win with that. I think it's going to be 3-2 Vermin Skulkers. I want you all to tune in and watch this game tonight because it is going to be, again, easily the 2 best teams in 5 years of the NKBBL going head-to-head. And if we get a chance to see this again in the championship game, it's going to be an absolute delight.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be incredible to watch. All right, Koba, what about you?
As I witnessed the devastation that the rats reave firsthand, I'm giving this one to the Skulkers at a 3-1. Although I very much agree with Dimitri that this will be the game to watch.
All right. Yeah, for me, I mean, obviously it speaks for itself. Number 1, number 2, only 50K difference. They're both kitted out, ready to go. You've got the leader in casualties in most casualty categories, the leader in every touchdown category. You've got a team that's tied for first in the amount of touchdowns against. You've got a squad that's literally right behind them in terms of casualties. It's just elite versus elite here. Skulkers already clinched playoffs. They're on their way to the postseason no matter what. Slam Diego can get it done with a tie or a win. Or even if they lose, they can get it done with a San Fran tie or a loss. So likely both these teams are postseason bound, but this week, I think, is setting the tone for each team. This is where you define yourself as an elite contender when you see either the most insane Skaven team ever built across from you, or you see a massive destructive force that you got to run past. But unlike you all, I've got faith in the Bash tonight. I think there's a lot of things that this Chargers coach has to lose. Obviously, the winner is the head of the division, and it probably stays that way till the end of the league. So you're looking at number 1 seed. You're looking at potential Coil Cup here. But I think also the only coach to ever end the regular season undefeated is heading those Chargers. And I know that they want to retain that status as the only 10-0 season. So I think they're going to really want it, and I think they're going to finally be the roadblock that slows down these Skulkers. I've got Charges 2-1, but again, I mean, it's been stated. Don't miss this one. I think this will be an interesting one, or it'll be another Skulkers routing, and we'll be like, man, they're unstoppable.
Nobody wants to see this just turn into another 4-0.
Right. Yeah. But we will see. Anyway, that wraps up our show for you today. So obviously we've done some changes to the format over the break. So let us know if you like this condensed version or some things that you want to see from your bi-weekly Wartscenter. Anything else from the desk before we get ready for tonight's match?
Good luck, coaches.
Yeah, again, I truly mean it. If you've never tuned into an NKBBL broadcast, this is the time.
Ready to rumble
tonight.
All right, well, that's been our show. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you tonight on twitch.tv/Dr. Coil for the live play, and then the following week right here on Cabal Vision North for your replay. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
We'll see.